you know, sometimes things happen for the good and you don't even realize it, because immediately after I retired from the telephone company, I came down with prostate cancer.
When you were in the hospital, I started praying, and when they told me that I could spend the night with you, I said, oh no, I'm not going to sit here and watch him die. So I went home, called my doctor the next morning, and he got in touch with a gastroenterologist. And I worked at a church in D.C., and at 10 o'clock in the morning, I went to the altar and I prayed. And all I said was, Lord, I am not ready for him to go now.
Men, you know, unlike 18 years ago when I was first diagnosed, there are so many treatments available now that compared to what it was then, that we have to educate men on what the treatments are, and we have to also educate them what the side effects are of each treatment. No matter what treatment they choose to fight the cancer, to fight prostate cancer, is the longevity, lifespan is the same, basically. No matter what treatment you get, you look at the statistics. The lifespan turns out to be the same. So that's why it's important that you educate yourself on the side effects and pick a treatment that you're comfortable with and you could accept in your, you know, in your lifestyle. For instance, for guys, young guys, maybe he's 40, 44, he's working, he's got a family to take care of. He may not want to go through the procedure of having his prostate removed, because we're almost guaranteed to have incontinence there. And incontinence could be, we know it's going to be for at least 6 weeks, and it could be much longer than that. We know that he's going to spend some time in the hospital. We can't, you know, but, you know, the circumstance may be that the guy can't miss that kind of time from work. So he has to look at another treatment, which is fine. Yeah. There are the other treatments, such as radiation, he could continue to work and never miss a day of work. So these are the kind of things that we have to educate the men about. Norwood Sloan. I'm your interviewer for today. Today we have two guests. I would like the first guest to introduce themselves, and shortly after the first guest introduce themselves, then I would like the second guest to introduce themselves. My name is Norwood Sloan.
I'm Mayford Sloan, Norwood's wife, and we've been married 56 years.
Also a retiree of AT&T after 20 years. I also happen to be a prostate cancer survivor, of an advanced prostate cancer survivor. I now work on a part-time basis for the American Cancer Society and as the outreach spokesperson for prostate cancer. Well, today I'm here at this health fair to put on a display for the American Cancer Society with a program that I usually do called Let's Talk About It. And the purpose of the program is to get men to talk about prostate cancer. Normally what we do, we go out into the community and we put displays up and put out information for the men to pick up and take home and encourage them to go in for early testing. I would like to welcome another guest, Dr. Ted Davis. How are you, Dr. Davis?
Hi, Woody. I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Fine. Thank you for asking. Would you please introduce yourself for the audience?
My name's Ted Davis. I'm a professor at the University of Delaware in the Department of Political Science and International Relations.
Dr. Davis, how old were you when you were first diagnosed for your prostate surgery?
49, and I had the surgery, about 6 days after my 50th birthday. So again, I was very, very young in the general scheme of things. But again, I also caught my prostate cancer very early in the process. So probably if I had not discovered it, probably by age 65, 60, the symptoms probably really would have gotten bad. So I found mine very early, and I was very fortunate.
What kind of symptoms were you having prior to the surgery?
I was having symptoms, and I don't think my symptoms were necessarily tied to my prostate. I've got kind of bladder issues too, and so we were trying to figure out why is it that I'm always having to urinate, constantly go to the bathroom.
What symptoms alerted you to the possibility that you may or may not have prostate cancer?
My prostate felt normal, but we went ahead and did a biopsy, and it was through the biopsy that they discovered that I had cancer, but it was only in one set of the lobes. So the thing was, it was kind of by accident that I discovered that I had prostate cancer, because I've always been one to feel that every year I'm going to go and have my physical.
Thank you, Dr. Davis, for taking time out from your busy schedule.
All right, Woody. Good seeing you again.
No, I'm not done with you yet. Stick around, watch the monitor, and feel free to join in the conversation. Would you mind telling me what brought you into this prostate cancer situation that you're in? One of the things that brought me into this prostate cancer situation is, and I always tell men, this prostate cancer is something that you get no warning about. There is no warning in the early stages, and that is the big reason why we encourage men to go and get tested and continue to get tested at least once a year. You say you want men to keep in contact with their doctor, but suppose you have a doctor that really doesn't feel it's necessary for you to be followed up on a yearly basis. By being tested, you are able to catch this disease at its earliest stage.
My situation is really interesting too, because I discovered prostate cancer at a very early age.
At that moment, did you think that you were in a life or death situation?
No, I started thinking about, so this is how it's going to come to an end. How many years do I have? And things of that nature. Now I'll go to a support group. I wish I would have known that support group existed before I, it's always good to get some information from other people. I mean, I thought this was the end, and I became, and it's nothing like getting the news that you've got prostate cancer after you get over in my case, getting over the initial point of realizing, yes, you've got it. Then you begin to become fearful. Not necessarily for me, but what's going to happen to my family, and those type things start to run through your mind.
I hear sometimes that people say prayer helps you get through some of the things that you've gone through, especially in the early stages of fighting this disease. Did prayer help you?
You begin to rethink things, and certainly you began to pray and in my own way. It was kind of for my family. I have had, and I'm a fairly young man, but I've had a wonderful life. And if my life ended today or tomorrow, I have far exceeded what I ever imagined, growing up, that I would exceed. So I've had a wonderful life. Prayer is important.
I hear so many times that men should get a second opinion. In your particular case, did you seek a second opinion?
I guess it's always good to get a second opinion. I'll be honest with you. I did not get a second opinion per se. I think if that's going to make you feel comfortable getting a second, third opinion, do that. Whatever's going to kind of satisfy you. You've got to, from my standpoint, you've got to have faith and you've got to trust. When you get that diagnosis, I mean, I feel like you've got to trust your doctors.
What about family history?
I knew my grandfather had died of cancer. And this is another thing that we don't do enough of, particularly as blacks and black males.
I understand that family history can be a big factor on how aggressive prostate cancer could be.
We don't know enough.
Or whether a man has prostate cancer at an early age.
We don't do enough investigation in terms of our family medical history. When we have a tendency when our people die, they're just dead. And we don't need to understand the circumstances. Well, that's bad for us to do because not knowing the circumstances, we're doing more harm to ourselves.
Was there prostate cancer in your family?
If your grandfather died of cancer, I just assumed that he died from lung cancer because he smoked Camel cigarettes all of his life. But come to find out, he died from prostate cancer. Not only did he die from prostate cancer, but both of his brothers died from prostate cancer. So, and I did not know all of this until I was diagnosed, and then I started doing the research and found out, wait, I've got a family background. I got a history of this.
We know that there is a family history of prostate cancer in my family. My father had prostate cancer, all of his brothers, and all of my first cousins had prostate cancer. Was there prostate cancer in your wife's family? How much prostate cancer was in your family?
When my father passed in 1952, he was 47, and I told my brothers to go get their PSA, and the two that I told to go, they did have prostate cancer, so it's in my family.
You say you want men to keep in contact with their doctor, but suppose you have a doctor that really doesn't feel it's necessary for you to be followed up on a yearly basis. Your doctor should be following up on you and keeping track of you on a yearly basis, and if he isn't, you have to be your own self-advocate.
Even though I didn't have a job that, in terms from an environment that put me around a lot of chemicals.
In that particular case, what should a man do?
But I'm gonna be honest, I live in Delaware.
You can insist that they follow you up on a yearly basis. If your doctor is not doing that or is giving you a hard time about it, then you need to fire your doctor. And if you can catch it in its earliest stage, it's a very good probability that you're going to be cured of the prostate cancer. That's a very good point cured, that you brought out. I have to use that word very lightly. We don't like to use the word cured too often because after 8 or 9 years, we have no way of knowing whether any of the prostate cancer cells got out of the prostate before the cancer has shown that it was killed through blood tests and other tests. The time that it was discovered with me 18 years ago, doctors weren't treating, there wasn't a suitable blood test, there wasn't a suitable test for prostate cancer. I have been told, and I don't know for sure, but I would like a confirmation on this. I hear that many men take their time going to see a doctor because they have this macho thing going on that goes on with a lot of men. My wife tried to convince me to go to the doctor to see what was going on.
Well, when my father passed in 1952, he was 47, and at the time they didn't know much about prostate cancer, but I was around him a lot and I noticed his symptoms. And when you start showing the same symptoms, it really scared me, and I tried to get you to go to the doctors for like 3 years and you didn't go.
If your wife was trying to get you to go to the doctor for this problem, why didn't you go to the doctor?
And when you finally went, you found out that you had prostate cancer. So I figured my father had it too.
You found out that you had prostate cancer, and you found out that you had an advanced stage of prostate cancer. Yes, how did you feel? I had a PSA of 44, which is very high, and a Gleason score. Gleason score is an indication of how how aggressive the cancer is. What was your reaction? I had a decision to make.
I decided to go with the radical prostatectomy.
It referred me to a doctor to get a biopsy, and the biopsy came back positive that I had prostate cancer.
I want the organ removed from my body.
I wanted my prostate removed.
Because at that particular time, my cancer had not metastasized, so it wasn't outside of the prostate.
Good possibility that had gotten out of the capsule of the prostate.
And so it was just my general idea. If I remove that, I don't have to worry about the possibility of the cancer coming back, at least within that particular organ. So that's why I elected to do the radical prostatectomy.
I agreed to be part of that study. It wasn't just me, it was myself and several other people that we all decided to be part of this experiment. We came to an agreement, and he says, okay, we'll go in to remove it. However, before we remove, when I put you on that cable, when I open you up to remove that prostate, before I take that cut into to the vessels to remove the prostate, I'm going to take a sample, some of the samples of your lymph nodes leaving the prostate, and send them to the lab while you're on the table to see if any cancer cells are in them. Results came back positive, and so once they came back positive, he just closed me back up. He didn't remove the prostate. When I woke up and found out that prostate was still there, that was one of the scariest moments in my life. And when he told me why I had the prostate, that was even a scarier moment. When we announced it, it was even scarier than the moment when we did the biopsy and I found out that I had the prostate before the operation, but now I had the operation and I couldn't get my prostate removed. Between my doctor and myself, that we were going to treat my cancer aggressively as possible, and it worked. We came off the hormonal treatments. We were being looked at every 3 months. How did your wife feel about your hormonal treatments? How did you feel about me undergoing hormonal treatments?
If they were going to help you, well, if it was the best treatment, then I would be happy about it.
Radiation and hormonal treatments. The radiation wasn't that bad. It was 39 days of radiation, which wasn't that bad. The only thing that caused for me was a little tiredness. But the hormonal treatments, well, that was a whole different story, because treating prostate cancer with hormonal treatments means that you're doing a whole reversal of what is normal for the man. Notice a change in my personality while I was undergoing hormonal treatments. And how did you feel about those changes, if there were any? But the hormonal treatments, well, that was a whole different story.
It was wonderful.
Because treating prostate cancer with hormonal treatments means that you're doing a whole reversal of what is normal for the man.
Because you were very emotional.
In that hormonal treatments, the purpose of hormonal treatments is to kill off your ability to produce testosterone.
And you did cry, and you had sympathy.
And as we know, testosterone is what prostate cancer cells survive on. But also, when the only way you're going to kill off this testosterone, because that's what men produce, you're going to have to get that man something that's just the opposite of what's normal for him, and that's what hormone treatments, which is nothing more than hormones, female hormones. After so long, you get tired of going through this side effects that the hormonal treatments create.
I really thought when you got off them you would change, but so far you haven't changed.
But the worst of it was the hot flashes. I've been told that these being treated with hormone treatments possibly can have some side effects to men that they really don't want to deal with, and that's one of them is the possibility of breast cancer. After being treated with hormonal treatments, like I said, it had a reversed effect on your body. I developed lumps in my left breast, and now that was a scary thing because I just women worry about breast cancer, but men seem to think that they can't get breast cancer. However, I tell you that about 10% of the men out there do get breast cancer. And in my particular case, with the hormonal treatments, I'm really worried because I thought maybe these lumps that I was feeling, which turned out to be tumors, were cancerous. So we went through and we had the again catching it early. Just by examining myself in the shower, I felt the lumps, and right away I went to the doctor. We had them removed and we had them biopsied, and they were not cancerous, thank goodness. But however, we're not taking any chances. I get a mammogram just like a woman would. I get my mammograms every 5 years. And now, when I first had to remove, I was getting a mammogram every year, then every 2 years. Now it's every 5 years that I'm getting it. Do you think that prostate cancer has changed your lifestyle? One of the things I did, I went to fish and vegetables and things, no fatty food.
My diet wasn't what it was supposed to do, eating a lot of fatty foods, and I like the collard greens and the fried chicken and all of that.
People in the Far East have far less prostate cancer than we have in the United States. In the Far East, prostate cancer was almost non-existent. In some parts of Africa, it was existent. In other parts of Africa, it wasn't. In Europe, prostate cancer was rampant. And so I looked at that, and so did not only me, but others, people in the medical world. And the one thing when you look at these different countries, the ones that don't have a problem with prostate cancer, what is the thing in common that you can look at? And it's diet. And when you look at the Far Eastern countries like Japan and some parts of Africa, the one thing that's different is, what about Far Easterners that live here in the United States? They almost have no fat in their diet. Far Easterners, such as the Japanese, Chinese people that come to the United States, they do show up with prostate cancer. They live completely off of fish and vegetables and things, no fatty foods. They don't eat they don't eat pork, very little, if any. Problems because they no longer follow the diet of their mother country. Stress. When you moved back to Delaware and you moved into a less stressful area, the one thing you want to do is keep your stress level down. Well, living in the Washington area was loaded with stress. Do you think that contributed to your well-being in outlasting the return of prostate cancer? Got into an exercise program that you can live with. Water aerobics worked for me. How does your wife feel about you being involved in this exercise program? I was definitely afraid of water. Since you say that you were afraid of water, how did you overcome that fear? and yet today it seems that you've overcome that fear, and now that you're actually enjoying water aerobics. What did you do to overcome this? Let's go live to the Boys and Girls Club.
Down, extend your arms all the way out to the side. They're rougher than you, I can take you.
Good morning, class.
Good morning.
Teresa, I personally thank you for all of your help.
My pleasure to actually have you here today. We're so excited that you've been a survivor and that you're out there educating the public and having everyone so that they can have a chance like you.
Good morning, Woody. How are you?
Very well. Good morning to you.
I want to thank the Boys and Girls Club for allowing us to use their facility, and at this point, I will say goodbye to the class. Once I got into it, I found that I learned how to swim at 69. Have you ever had any of these men come back to you after a period of time, say 1 or 2 years, come back to you and says, you know, Woody, I'm so glad that we talked about prostate cancer, because I did get checked. I had prostate cancer. A couple of times through emails and a couple of times in person, I've had someone walk up to me and says, you know, Woody, I remember hearing you talk about prostate cancer last year or a couple of years ago, and she said, I think you might have saved my life. Probably saved my life, because I did go to the doctor and I found out I had prostate cancer, and I caught it in the early stages, and I've taken care of it and I'm doing fine, and thank you. That is something that really you can't imagine how that could make you feel, and so I find that today when we do free prostate cancer screenings, you'll find men that come in to get screened, and if you look in the background, you'll see you'll see a lot of the men that are being screened. You'll see their significant others sitting in the back. To me, that tells me that significant other person was the one that got them in there to get to that screening session. No matter what your treatment is for prostate cancer, it's going to affect your sex life. Did you feel that you were threatened sexually as far as your sexual relationship with your wife was concerned?
Prostate has a tendency to be tied to one's sexuality. And as a black man in America, there aren't too many occasions when we get, quote, if you want to consider this to be a positive accolade. But in terms of our identity, if nothing else, we got a quote positive identity in terms of our athletic ability and our sexuality. I remember I had a cousin to kind of want the word kind of relayed to me about, man, if you get that surgery, once he found out I had prostate cancer, that if you get that surgery, you're not going to be able to have sex. And I sent word back to him, dead people don't have sex anyhow. So if I don't get the surgery and I'm dead, I can't have sex. So my sex life is over, period. I'd rather be alive with no sex life than to be dead and no life at all. Our identity is kind of tied to our sexuality. And this is something that interferes with one's sexuality. Then I think that some subconsciously, I don't think people go around necessarily contemplating this, but I've heard, people talk, that somehow we know that this is tied to our sexuality, and hopefully we can use videos like this to kind of clear up some of the rumors.
You see, men worry too much about their sex life while they're being cured, and women don't worry about it at all. All they want is the man, they just want their man cured. What about this examination that men go through? Isn't this something that, aren't you violating the man's body?
Having a prostate exam and dealing with prostate cancer doesn't necessarily have to change one's sexuality.
I mean, as an Afro-American, we've been violated enough. Is this something that's really necessary?
Part of the process of getting the physical, one gets the digital rectal exam.
You always hear things like, "Oh, I'm not gonna have anybody sticking anything up my butt."
Where they check for prostate cancer. And there's a nice little saying I heard someone say about that in terms of, sometimes, particularly as black men, and I'm gonna say homophobia, but I don't want, nobody playing back there.
That's a minor thing. That's all of 10 seconds.
And I've heard this someone say,
man puts on a glove and he puts his finger, gives you the finger or in your rectum area to feel the prostate, and that's it.
It's either, when you have to think about it in terms of this, it's 3 or 6. Kind of 3 inches up there checking your prostate or 6 feet in the ground. Which do you choose? The joke is that, God gave man 2 heads, and unfortunately they can only think with one at a time. I had to begin to kind of think with both heads at the same time. If your sex is kind of one-dimensional and you depend on that, then you're in trouble. Sex can be multidimensional. I mean, there's that physical dimension, but there's also that mental dimension, and the two go hand in hand. So in other words, I'm not having any real problems, but the thing is that, again, things aren't as rigid as they used to be, but as you get older, they don't get as rigid now, so that's just going to happen. So you have to find other ways to please your partner. You have to kind of expand kind of your sexual horizon. It actually enhancing the sexual relations, because I ain't relying on one thing all the time. Sometimes the holding and the cuddling and all the other little things become kind of important. It makes you less one-dimensional, and you need to become more multidimensional.
And obviously, you were treated for quite a while. Was the lack of sexual activity a big problem for your wife? As you know, during the 5 years that I was being treated with those hormonal treatments, there was a big problem with our sex life. At that point, did you feel that you were threatened sexually as far as your sexual relationship with your wife was concerned? And I would be very interested to know how she felt about this sexuality thing associated with prostate cancer from the very beginning when she found out you first had it.
So it's been 18 years, and so long as you treat me right, that's it.
I often wondered how you felt about not being sexually active because of prostate cancer.
Well, it wasn't only 5 years, it's been 18 years. That's why I exercise and swim and, do all these things to take that extra energy out, and it really works.
You know what? I never cried. Is that a problem for you? I never cried when I had cancer.
Men cry, and it was good to see him cry instead of getting angry and flying off the handle.
I definitely agree with you. My personality changed. Well, I got to think about that. I got evil. I got, I was hard to live with.
But the first 5 years were, oh my goodness.
Really?
I started to put you in a veteran's home.
You really don't mean that, do you?
But then after that, You changed, and
Well, I guess you do.
then since you've been taking care of me, you can stick around for a while.
Did your wife notice much difference in your personality because of these treatments? When I started being treated with the hormonal treatments, and then when they took me off the hormonal treatments, my wife said something to me that was very profound, and I really had to think about it when she told me. She says, "You know what, Norwood, I'd like you better when you had prostate cancer than now." I did a lot of silent praying, but what kind of praying did you do for me? And when did you do it?
Oh, when you were in the hospital, I started praying, and when they told me that I could spend the night with you, I said, oh no, I'm not going to sit here and watch him die. So I went home, called my doctor the next morning, and he got in touch with a gastroenterologist. And I worked at a church in D.C., and at 10 o'clock in the morning, I went to the altar and I prayed. And all I said was, Lord, I am not ready for him to go now. And when I got back to the hospital at 12 o'clock, the nurse said, Miss Sloan, he's been up since 10 o'clock this morning. So I felt really good about that, and still praying. You're still here after 18 years.
Would you wish this problem on anyone else?
No, but if the Lord, it was meant for them to have it, then it's in the Lord's hands, not mine or anyone else's. I started to put you in a veteran's home.
Really? If it comes back, are you still going to think about putting me in the veterans home?
No, I wouldn't do that. The past 6 years you've been taking care of me, cooking and everything with all my problems. No, I wouldn't put you in a veteran's home. No. Mm-mm.
I'm glad you changed. I would have been at the vet hospital.
And I really had to think about that. And what she was telling me was that when I had prostate cancer, I was on hormonal treatments. You know, it changed, it took the, that macho bit out of me. And I was a much nicer person. I used to bring her flowers home, candy, and it was just a, my person. I was easy to get along with. And that was those female hormones working on me. You know what? She's got something there. It does make a difference. I now understand what goes on with men in prostate cancer a lot better.
Yeah, I just want to encourage all men, but especially black men, because too many of us are dying from prostate cancer unnecessarily and prematurely. I think we got to get over this old general idea about not going to the doctor, and that somehow bad things happen to you if you go to the doctor. I mean, all that, we need to put that aside. We need to take care of ourselves and understand that this is a disease that is treatable if it's caught early enough. I know some people say, well, finances might be a problem, but there are at least twice a month, there's some clinic, some group, some body somewhere in your county, in your city, that's giving free exams. The opportunities are there to get this. So money shouldn't be a cost. I certainly encourage people to go ahead and do it, because I don't know who used to have the saying, but the life you save may be your own.
Prostate cancer does not have to be the second leading cause of death for men in the United States. At this time, I want to bring this session to a close, and I want to thank all of you for your participation. I don't know about you, but this has been one interesting and one informative period of time. I've I've listened and I've learned so many things that I didn't know before. And I hope, I truly hope that men will look at this and say, I have got to go get myself checked on a yearly basis. And I've got to look at my family history and make sure that I take care of myself. If not for myself, do it for my family. I thank you, and goodbye.
So actually, you can just look up and look up at the camera and smile if you want.
Yeah.
Smile.
Well, I'm smiling.
I think these are great.
Yeah.